With all the injuries to Minnesota, Denver may have lucked out and found themselves back in this series. Nuggets started the game playing with pace right from the jump and forcing tons of turnovers from the Wolves, led to plenty of easy looks and a dominant first quarter from Denver. Although they weren't leading by tons through the first, it was clear that they were just in control of that quarter. Some decent shooting from Minnesota kept the score close, but Denver came out like they hadn't in games 3 and 4 especially. They looked like a much different team tonight early on. A lot of that is going to be due to the injuries to DiVincenzo and Ant, but even beyond Denver just being better on defense early on tonight, they really did lock in offensively right from the jump. Jokic and Jamal both got it going early, and so although it was a closer game early on than Denver would have liked, the Wolves were able to keep it close, mainly through their perimeter game instead of getting to the paint, which Denver does have to prefer to the absolute beatdown they'd been receiving in the paint these past few games. They will live with those 30 balls much more than they will Minnesota penetrating the paint. So overall, very good start for Denver. Energy from the Nuggets was ridiculous. It did feel like they should be leading by 10 to 15 points midway through the second instead of just a handful of points. But again, they were in control all the way through the opening minutes. Tyus Jones saw his first run all series and was making the most of it. The league has left him behind this season, but he was looking great early for Denver. It is interesting that as soon as Minnesota has to widen the rotation with the injuries to Ant and Dante, the Nuggets do the same, with Valanciunas also seeing some more minutes tonight, while he hasn't really been a factor in this series. And then again, Tyus Jones, first time seeing him all series, and he was looking very good. Overall, that first half was the best half of basketball that Denver has played since game 1. It is slightly concerning for them that they were only up 9 after pretty much dominating the flow of the entire half and dictating the pace of the game, but lead is a lead, and Denver had not seen many of those in the series, so it was a great response from the Nuggets. It was interesting that Denver was living in the paint through the first half. It's a bit of an odd turn of events to see Denver getting whatever they want inside, while Minnesota was struggling in what has been their best area of attack in the series. It does make sense for the Wolves to not be seeing as much offense there with no Ant, and to a lesser extent DiVincenzo, meaning less downhill pressure on the Nuggets defense. But that also doesn't really explain Denver coming alive in the paint on offense, as neither of those guys contribute very much to protecting the paint. So that is a big adjustment for Denver. If they can get more paint points, more easy looks at the rim, that is going to serve them very well heading into Game 6. The Nuggets' whole starting lineup looked pretty great tonight. Cam Johnson, Spencer Jones, and Christian Braun finally looked great for the Nuggets. Those three guys have really been the engines behind Denver's pace in Game 5 and did create tons of turnovers and fast break opportunities with their energy, which was not something we saw from them in any of their losses. Despite the loss, Minnesota did have great shooting splits. Denver just had an even better night offensively. And for the Wolves, 25 turnovers is not something that they can afford. It is ultimately going to be nearly impossible to win a game giving the ball away that much. A win like this gives Denver confidence in their shooting back, which is a scary thing for an undermanned Wolves team. If Minnesota was healthy, I wouldn't have at all been surprised by them taking care of business in 5. But with things being how they are, they do now need to finish it at home, because a Game 7 with Denver on back-to-back wins at home, while the Wolves still have no Ant, would be an absurdly difficult environment to win in. In the second half, we did see Minnesota start getting back to operating in the paint, and the Nuggets, again, just don't have a great answer to that problem, as they don't have the personnel to ever fully shut it down. It was too late for the Wolves to make a run off of it in this game, but in Game 6, I do expect them to get going much earlier in the game and stick to that as their most reliable form of offense throughout all 48 minutes. The big question for Minnesota looking ahead to Game 6 is if they'll be able to do enough defensively to slow down this Nuggets team. Sometimes all it takes is one game to unlock a team in the playoffs, and this might have been that performance for Denver. So while I do have faith in the Wolves' ability to put points on the board, it's really their defense that is going to determine the outcome, and we might see that Jokic-Gobert matchup decide the outcome of this series, because another defensive masterclass from Rudy might be enough to halt Denver's momentum from tonight, while if Jokic is able to keep things rolling, it's going to ripple out to the whole Nuggets roster. It's unfortunate for Minnesota that injuries struck when they did, because without them, they likely have already advanced. But at this point, I do give the edge back to Denver, as they really only need to hold it together for one more game, as the atmosphere at a Game 7 at home after coming back from down 3-1 would just be too stifling for a Wolves team that would be on a 2-game losing streak, and without having found answers to slow the Nuggets offense within their new rotations in the case of another loss. So I do have this one going to the Nuggets in 7, but they did really get bailed out by the injuries to Ant and Dante.